I think there's something really wrong. Because what does that tell about that person? If you observe someone who's gone under the knife, changed the size of whatever part of their body, and then for someone to be observing that person and say, wow, now that looks good, does that not tell something, the fact that she or he had to go under the knife to change a part of his body? Does that not tell you that he or she is not content with his or her own body? Well, if he or she is not content with their own body, how can somebody else be? That's like, I've got a car, I can't drive it. Would you like to borrow it? I have a car. You can't drive it. I tried, you can't drive it. Would you like to borrow it? Why would you? I can't, you can't be driven. So why would you try and borrow it? See, think about it. So that's another coping mechanism. It's not the silver bullet, it's simply a coping mechanism. Ask yourself, why did that person have to put makeup? Not what the makeup is, but why makeup? Not what the perfume is, but why perfume? Not what that shoes are, why those shoes? See, some people spend a lot of money on shoes. Some people spend a lot of money on accessories. Earrings and garlands and necklaces and all sorts of things. Again, I'm not saying don't do any of these things. If you live in normal society, you're going to have to conform with usual practices in society. Do them, that's fine. But at least when you do them, you know why you do them, right? When you go in front of the mirror and you brush your hair, when you apply some makeup, is it wrong to apply makeup? Is it? No, of course not. It's not wrong to apply makeup. As a monk, I'm not permitted to use any makeup. As a monk, I'm not permitted to use any deodorant or anything like that. I'm not permitted. Had the Buddha not laid out any rules against that, I would have. Why? Because that smell can be offensive to somebody else. I have no problem with that. But a sweaty armpit can be quite offensive to somebody else. Because people who live in this world, the rest of them are not arahants. Only to an arahant does a smell not smell disgusting. To them there are no lovely smells or disgusting smells. To them the smell is just a smell. So if you travel in public transport or you are in the presence of others, then please make yourself presentable. And please continue to do so until you enter robes. If you are in robes, then there is no longer the requirement to dress yourself up, to beautify yourself. You don't need any cosmetics. Right? We live a very simple life. But had I been a layperson, I would have continued to do it. Even today I would have done it. I would have worn a deo, I would have use whatever creams and things like that, just so that I'm presentable. If you work in the workplace, if you have to deal with customers, you got to look the part, right? You can't just be good at your job, you got to look the part. If you don't look good, then you're not going to be of any value to your business most of the time. So it's fine, do them. But as you do it, ask yourself, why is it that I have to do it? When you brush your teeth in the morning, ask yourself, why is it I have to brush? So then you don't enjoy the experience. You just realize that I have to do it. Because otherwise the consequences are quite terrible. Therefore I'm having to do it. So then when you put yourself in a situation where you're now having sensual thoughts towards a girl or towards a boy because they have dressed up glamorously, lipstick, beautiful hair, lovely dark eyes, right? All that stuff that's going on, perfume, you've got to stop and ask yourself the question, why? Then you'll find the answer. It's because she is not content with the way she looks, so she has had to change herself. How can I be content with something when it's not content with itself? That's one coping mechanism. These are coping mechanisms to give yourself just some room, some breathing space, just some relaxation to get yourself into that mode. Another coping mechanism, especially when it comes to desire and sensuality, would be, have you ever seen someone kissing themselves? Someone kissing themselves, like maybe say a girl, like kissing themselves, like all over themselves, kissing themselves. Have you ever seen someone do that? No, why not? It's not pleasurable. Right? You've never seen a guy kissing himself. You've never seen a girl kissing herself. So why does the guy feel the need to kiss the girl and the girl feel the need to kiss the guy? Have you seen anyone embrace themselves? No. They embrace the other person. So that tells us then, does it not, that if you'd never find someone kissing themselves, that their body is not worth kissing? That they don't find themselves pleasurable? So here's the thing. If a guy finds a girl attractive and he feels the need to go and engage in physical contact, let's say a kiss, okay? That's because he thinks that this girl is pleasurable. If the girl were actually pleasurable, what do you think the girl should be doing all day long? Huh? She should be kissing herself. If she was actually pleasurable, or if her body was pleasurable, then what should she be doing all day long? Kissing herself and touching herself top to bottom all day long. But she doesn't do that. She doesn't do that because to her, her body is not pleasurable. So if to her, her body is not pleasurable, how come it becomes pleasurable to somebody else? Ever seen a guy do that to himself? Kissing himself? No, that's because he recognizes, what am I doing? This body is not pleasurable. But he goes looking for somebody else to engage in that physical contact without stopping to think, if that person was really pleasurable or that body was really pleasurable, then I would never even be able to get close to that person because he or she would be all over himself or herself. Coping mechanism again. So whenever you feel the need to engage in physical contact, or if ever you feel, oh, I wish I could do this, that, or the other thing with that person, stop for a moment and ask yourself, do I see that person doing that with him or herself? No. Well, if that activity was pleasurable for that person with him or herself, then that would tell me that actually that person's body was pleasurable, but actually it's not. This is why they don't do it with themselves. They seek somebody else to do it with. So that tells us that pleasure is simply in the mind. It's in the mind, it's not in the physical body. It's not in the object. That's again a coping mechanism. So these are all events where you can just take a moment, hang on, what's going on here? I want to have physical contact with this person. So I don't see that person patting themselves all over themselves, but why do I feel the need to go and touch her hand? To a guy, touching a girl's hand can be pleasurable, right? Yes or no? Yes. Have you not all done that? I've done that. As a layperson, I've done that. If I had a relationship with a girl, I'd go and touch her hand. I'd like to do that. But touching her hand because I think that's pleasurable. Well, if that was really pleasurable, what do you think the girl must be doing? Touching her hand all day long. She'd be like this all day long. What? Touching her hands. But you don't see someone do like that all day long because she realizes herself that that's not pleasurable. If it's not pleasurable to her, how can it be pleasurable to me? Then does that not tell us that pleasure is only in the mind and it's not actually something that is an attribute of the object? That's another coping mechanism. Among these, you will have your own coping mechanisms. I'm not saying throw them all away. These are some additional ones that you can also use. Coping mechanisms. So one was the fact that, they could have been your parent. Oh, how about the fact that, the girl you're having sensual thoughts towards now could have been your daughter in your last birth. Ooh. The boy or the guy you're having sensual thoughts towards now, that could have been your son in your last birth. So in your last birth, you gave them your sweat, blood and tears. In this birth, you want to have a sensual relationship with them? That just sounds so wrong. That's bordering on incest. The only difference is different birth. So when you begin to put things into context, you begin to realize how revolting and disgusting sensuality is. Sensuality is meaningless. That's why the Tathagatan once says, Sankaparago Purisasa Kamo. This kama or sensuality is simply a manifestation of the way you think. It's a figment of the mind. It's a fragmentation of the mind. It's the way the mind perceives. It's not real. And only an insane mind is able to enjoy sensuality. I used to indulge in sensuality, but not as a monk, of course, as a layperson. But today I realized that was only because I was crazy. Yes. When was the last time you heard an Arahatun Mahan engage in sensuality? And sensuality does not necessarily mean physical. That is only one of the kama. Rupa kama, shabda kama, gandha kama, rasa kama, sparsha kama. This is all kama. Through eyes, ears, nose, body, and eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body. This is all kama. So it's not just physical contact. Okay, so when I say sensuality, it's not just physical contact that you need to be thinking about. It's the whole gamut. It's the full thing. So Arahatun Mahanse never wishes for sensual indulgence. Sensuality does not play any part in their existence. That's because sensuality is simply the mind gone mad. Because when you put things into perspective, see something simple as what I explained to you earlier. You've never seen someone holding their own hand for the purpose of sensual pleasure. But why do we feel the need to hold somebody's hand for the purpose of sensual pleasure? Does that not tell us something? Does that not tell us that sensuality is only in the mind and it's not really out there? See how we fool ourselves when we don't take a moment to stop and think. That's why Tathagata Mahanse, he talked so. He talked the way he did about sensuality. And he talked about the two extremes, Kama Sukhallikana Yoga and Atta Kilamatana Yoga, Hino Gammo, Potujjanako, Anariyo, Anatta Sanghito. That's how we talked about indulgence in sensuality. Hina, which is very lowly. Gramya, which is very undue of any regard. Gramya. Potujjanika, useless. Anatta Sanghita, leads to no gain. Right? So we spoke about two coping mechanisms. When it's sensuality that is getting the better of you. There'll be others, which none come to mind as of now, but if I'm reminded of others, I'll share with you. Let's go to moha. And usually manifestation of moha, the best one we can identify with is ego. When ego gets the better of us, where we feel that we are better than somebody else, or we feel that I don't need to pay due respect to somebody because I'm better than them. Now it could be perhaps sometimes in the workplace. I think we spoke about this, right? Your co-workers, or sometimes say if you have a peon in the office or a junior worker, then usually they'll greet you with a good morning. And if you're a senior employee of the organization, usually your response back will normally either be a nod. That's how you greet when someone says good morning. How disgusting. Someone says good morning sir, and you go, Is that not disgusting? That's not even a human response. To go like this, just nod your head when someone says good morning. Otherwise you say morning. Morning. They said good morning, and what you can say is morning. Or says good morning sir, because you feel that saying good morning in return belittles you. I shouldn't have to say good morning. I'm the senior manager. They're junior. I shouldn't have to say good morning. But they should be saying good morning. If they didn't say good morning, hey, why is that guy not saying good morning? Ego. If ever you feel this problem of ego, particularly at the workplace, again, coping mechanism. I'd like you all to be able to ask yourself this question: is it you they're respecting or your position they're respecting? Because if it's you they're respecting, then Siripada would have said good morning to you 6 months ago when he just bumped into you walking along the road as you were both going to the same shop, and he didn't know you, you didn't know him. He would have said good morning to you, but he didn't. He didn't. Because back then, 6 months ago, you weren't working for this company, or he wasn't working in that company. You were just strangers meeting each other. You bumped into each other or saw each other just randomly, and you just, the two of you walked past each other and there was no interaction, nothing. But today, he says good morning to you. What's changed? Yes, he's still Siripala and you are still Sumanadasa. Nothing's changed there. What's changed is position. So really, this mark of respect is shown not towards you, the individual. This respect is shown towards the position. So if you're a senior manager, it's not who they're respecting. Again, what they're respecting. They're respecting the position. And that is right. Most people get it wrong, whereby they go into authority, into some position, and they now believe, they regard themselves as the authority. They're not the authority. That position is the authority. What you have done is just take that seat. Temporarily you are filling that role. During that time, you get this treatment. Well, unfortunately, you can't go and say good morning to the seat, right? That would be mad. So you say good morning to the person who's taking that seat only because this is a mark of respect to the position, not to you as the individual. This is something I tell myself every day as a monk. Because I know for a fact, if you and I had met somewhere on the street, we would never have even greeted each other. I might have smiled at you, you might have smiled at me, but that would have been it. You would never have worshipped me. You would never have given me a meal. You would never have given me clothing or medicines. You would never have held your hands like this as you spoke to me. You would never have done that. So then is it me that you're respecting? No. You're respecting the position. This is why, and that is right. What you should respect is the Mahasangha, not the individual. Because what we do as members of the Sangha is just take that position. That's it. People keep flowing through this system. They come and go, they come and go, they come and go. Mahasangha, as I think we spoke about this last week or the week before, is simply a set of qualities. So, if you're the chairman of a company or a senior manager, think about the job posting, right? For them to have taken you on board, there would have been a job posting for which perhaps you would have applied, and then there had been an interview and you got the job. What if the other guy got the job? Now who would Siripala be saying good morning to? The other guy. Not to you, Sumanadasa. They'd be saying that to Nimal or whoever else would have gotten the job, not you. So does that not tell you then all the benefits that you're enjoying and experiencing today, the company car, the petrol, the allowances, the respect that people are showing you, none of these things are yours. They are all deserved and are rightfully the belonging of the position. All you are doing today is taking that position. In fact, you're a servant to the company. You're a servant to the company. Now where's that ego? Egos go. When you begin to think about it this way. How about when you're a teacher? Because teachers have egos the size of houses. Normally, right? It can happen. When you're a teacher, you've got to be very careful. Because you have a lot of students and they begin to respect you, and you've got to be very careful. Like monks, they've got to be even more careful. So if you're a teacher, it would be wrong for you to think that they are showing you respect as a teacher. What they're showing respect to is one, the Dhamma. It's not the Buddha Dhamma, it's whatever the Dhamma that you're expounding. If you're a science teacher, then science is the Dhamma that you're giving out. If you're a math teacher, then it's math. If you're a history teacher, then it's history. Because what your students are respecting is that Dhamma. Right? Whatever can be Dhamma, it doesn't necessarily have to be Buddha Dhamma, right? whatever that Dhamma is, and that's what they're showing their respect towards. And you are simply taking on the role of expounding that knowledge to your students. So that is what they respect, not you as an individual. Not you as an individual. Only your students show you respect and stand up from their seats when you walk into the classroom. But what about the teacher from the next school, from the neighboring school? Your students would never stand up for that person. In fact, if they saw them on the bus, it would just be any other person. Now, sometimes when people, elderly people, they believe that they deserve respect. As an elderly person, people believe that we deserve respect because we are elderly people in society. So they expect a seat to be offered to them. Again, there's nothing wrong with these things. Of course, we have to respect our elders. I'll be the first in line to admit that. But the person themselves, say, if I'm an elderly person, this is how I must feel. There's a seat reserved on the bus and says, reserved for the elderly, disabled and pregnant mothers and so on, right? And clergy. If someone stands up from their seat and offers you that seat because you are an elderly person, you've got to remind yourself that it's not me as a person that they're standing up for. They are showing their respect towards elderliness. That's what they're showing their respect towards. See, again, what I'm helping you to do, folks, is to remove the person from all of this. Remove the person. Otherwise, what happens is you personalize it. Then that's when you begin to realize, that's when you begin to think that this mark of respect is towards me. I'm trying to show you how to remove the mama, the ego, the self from all of these situations. Because after all, self is simply a creation. It's an artificial creation of the mind. It's not there at all, after all. This is a very temporary creation of the mind, the self. So let's take, as monks, there's in the Buddha Shasana, those monks who have sought higher ordination, and the order in which you have sought higher ordination, it determines the seniority within the Sambuddha Shasana, or within the Sangha community. So if you have taken higher ordination today, then you're senior to the monk who takes higher ordination the following day. Or at least even if it's a few seconds later, then the monk who has taken higher ordination prior to the second monk is senior than the other monk. Now, so at this monastery, let's say Guru Hamduro is the most senior monk, and then the line continues from that point forward. So let's take myself as an example. So Guru Swamin Wahanse is my senior at this monastery, as a result of which, what I will find is that a lot of people, all the other monks, the Anagarikas, they'll show respect. So, for example, one of the things we do in the Sangha community is whenever we take meals, the first offering is made to the most senior monk. Of course, first to the Tathagatan Wahanse, and then from there on, it will be in seniority order. And the most junior monk would partake of his meals last. That's the way it is, because it's a mark of respect. But what if I, as a senior monk, would begin to think, everyone's showing respect to me because I'm senior? That would be wrong, because it's not me anyone's showing respect to. It's the seniority that people are showing respect to, and that seniority hasn't got anything to do with me. It's simply to do with the Buddha laying out the rules whereby he said that the order in which you have taken higher ordination determines what your seniority is. So any mark of respect is not directed towards me. It's directed towards seniority. And that has nothing to do with me. Had it been somebody else in that situation, in that position, then that's who would have received that respect. So that's one way to think about, how do you cope with ego? And a second way, another method would be, here's something that I used to do a lot of the time, but I find I don't need to do that as much as I used to now. Whenever ego tells me to do something, I'll always do the opposite. I always do the opposite of that. Because I know when it's the dog barking, I know I can hear the bow bow. I can hear it when the dog's barking. The dog called what? Ego. This is the dog. So when the dog is barking, I know that the dog is barking. And you will all be able to sense that. When ego is, that the voice of ego is talking in the back of your mind, you will know that this is ego talking. So now you know the dog is barking. Whenever the dog starts barking, do the opposite. Whatever the dog says, do the complete opposite of that. So let's take an example. Let's say you walk into a room and there are people there and they're all looking for a seat, and there's a seat. There are very few seats available in the room. Okay, you walk into the room and there are quite a few people who are stood up, and there's maybe 1 or 2 seats available. Your ego tells you, you should go and take that seat because you're elderly or you're senior, so you should go and take that seat. If you know that this is your ego barking, then do the opposite. Offer that seat to somebody else. Now you got to be very careful here. An Arahatun Mahanse, if he sees that there's a seat there, if he's also the most senior monk, he would go and take that seat. He would not hang around waiting, offering it to others. If he knows that he's the most senior monk there, he would go and take that seat because he knows fully well that this seat is deserved by the seniority here, not by him as the person, because he's an Arahant. He has no self that needs to be fostered. So that seat is deserved by the seniority, that he knows. But if it's someone who's not an Arahatun Mahanse, anybody else might feel that I deserve the seat not because of my seniority, but because I'm good. I deserve the seat. The self takes prominence there. So in that situation where there's a few seats or there's 1 or 2 seats and there's quite a few people standing around looking for a seat, if you feel that I deserve that seat, so I need to go and take it for reasons other than the accepted customs and norms of what determines who gets to take a seat in that priority. If you feel that you need to go and take it simply because of the self and you feel that you are an important person, then do the complete opposite of that. Offer it to somebody else. Offer it to somebody else. Sometimes, the ego is a very funny one. Sometimes we like to show that we are humble. The dangerous word there is we like to show that we are humble. Being humble is fine. Humility is a good thing. But not when you want to show that you are humble. Not when you want to display and exhibit the fact that you are humble. Then that's ego. Some people, they go to great lengths to show that they are very humble. For instance, if there are seats to be taken, so I know some people, they'll go and take the lowest seat. There are plenty of seats to be taken, and that's not because that's the seat that they find comfortable, but they'll go and take the lowest seat because they want to show, they want to display, they want to exhibit that they are humble. That is also again ego taking the better of you. If it's your ego barking you to say go and take the lowest seat, do the complete opposite. Go and just take a normal seat. Don't go for the low seat. Particularly practitioners of the Dhamma,